Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Thank you for that introduction. And we are here for Tales of the Sale, episode 26. I think I edited the show notes correctly. Did you put the episode on here, Glenn?
I
We
did.
say
That was my single contribution this time.
touchdown. All right, this is a real crackerjack operation here, folks. It is it is mid-March as we record. We will be releasing as soon as I can get this edited. But we'll see. I think we'll be back on schedule for the foreseeable future. We apologize for the goofs that we had during February. So tonight we're joined by our regulars. So we have Glenn, the gentleman farmer Van Meter.
Hello.
We have Tyler, working way too hard Stone.
Hey, everybody.
And I am Tom, Chairborne Mullane. We're broadcasting to you from our separate bunkers, all along the Mid-Atlantic or up in New England. And I'm proud to be broadcasting from New England, considering that New England is the subject of a lot of the book that we're going to talk about some of the pieces from today. We're going to do some Fire on the Frontier chat. We will get into more of it, but we'll give you kind of a brief overview of all the lists that are there, because people that pre-ordered and people that have ordered since have probably started getting their books in the mail. So people are starting to play test some lists, and people are starting to kind of get a feel for all the stuff that Joe and Liam got to put together. And it's a really cool book. So I'm excited to talk about it. We're going to start by talking about what we have been up to. So, so Tyler, take it away.
So you mentioned, well, first of all, I'm going to say I'm not building terrain like I'm supposed to be. We do have the April tournament coming up. We'll touch on that, but I need to get stuff ready for that. I'm losing about a week to Adepticon. I will be on a plane this time next week. Well, hopefully not this time next week. That would be bad. I'll be in a hotel room in Chicago this time next week. And hanging out for that. So I've been talking to people on the Discord. There are some folks who are heading out that way, packing up. It's been awesome. People asking me if I need any help, if there's anything they can bring. Because anyone who's been following the story with what's gone on here, Firelock, we were going to be going in support of Firelock. They backed out. They have their reasons. I understand. And it turned into myself and the boss man, Mitch Reed. We were both going to be going. And then things started happening in Europe, and Mitch has a job with the military. So
yeah, that'll
I'm flying solo on this one. Literally, it is actually the first time I've flown anywhere by myself, not with like either a significant other or my family. So I might end up in Hong Kong. Who knows?
It's weird flying alone. You feel like an unaccompanied minor in like it's like that little kid from Sleepless in Seattle. You know? Yeah, I flew back from LA just by myself with nobody there. I was like, I don't know. I felt weird trying to strike up conversations with the people next to me, but I'm pretty weird.
I'm hoping I can just sleep.
It's even sadder when it's you and your one kid.
That I have done.
I was hyper focused. Like I took Alice down one time, but I was like hyper focused on her. So like making sure we're getting everywhere that we need to be, but at the same time, like you're attached to a small child who can't fend for themselves whatsoever.
Were you afraid you were going to lose her? Because like you have a spare. Like I mean, you have two, right? So
well, I didn't at the time.
Oh, okay. Is that's why you had two more kids though?
Yeah.
Was in case you lose Alice at an airport.
We're going with the Well, I mean, we're going with the 14th century method of just have some spares in case.
Well, you work on a farm.
Exactly.
Those kids got to work. Those tomatoes aren't going to grow themselves. I'm sorry, Tyler. I interrupted your solo flight on the airplane.
No, it's totally fine. That got dark. I have managed to play some games, which was really cool. I went out, I ran a demo for somebody. They have since been buying stuff up and painting and getting into that. So that was pretty cool. And I was having a rough week because of the overwork that you alluded to in the intro. Um, and it was cool because somebody reached out and was like, "It sounds like you need a game of Blood and Plunder." So I was able to go and hang out in their super awesome game room, uh, which they have done up like YouTube usually uses green screen backgrounds. This guy's basement looks like a castle. He's got 2 large
Oh my
gaming
God.
tables down there. So
That's so cool.
Nice.
got to see all of the old Warhammer stuff that we both partake in, and then played some Blood and Plunder.
Nice.
And tried out the new Fire on the Frontier lists. And yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I want to know what you played and how it went.
Yeah.
So, Glenn, you have some fascinating things listed under your to-do list in the show notes. I don't know how many of them you're actually going to go over. I'll leave our viewers in suspense. So, Glenn, what have you been up to?
Well, my birthday was last week, so I took the week off and promptly got sick and spent the entire week sick. Not COVID, just normal sick because of small children. Which another thing on my list, just being surrounded by screaming children. I was telling Tom earlier that at 7, we're recording. It's about 10 o'clock now, but at 7, it was looking great. Everything was up, and then one of them like fell in a mud puddle and started screaming, and then another one there's lots of screaming. It doesn't stop. There's no sleep. There's no it just keeps going. So I haven't managed to get anything done this month because it's just been constantly trying to help my wife get back to work, take shifts overnight with the baby, etc. And my only solace is watching Russian tanks explode in YouTube and TikTok videos.
You've sent me a lot of those too.
I
There's some good ones.
There are. I've been sending some good ones. Yeah. We're finally getting to see all the stuff happen in real life that we used to game in other gaming systems.
Yeah, it's nice watching people doing an awful thing being so terrible at it. Because I think that's a good thing.
Wasn't one of the most memorable games you guys have though, like someone unleashing just an unbelievable amount of chemical weapons?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
We should probably steer clear of those game scenarios.
Yeah.
I remember that happened. So somebody did it to us. So it was a Team Yankee themed game that Mitch
It
Reed
was
was helping
Ben.
to join. Ben released chemical weapons, and
Yeah,
I went
that's
to
what
the
I was gonna
NATO
say.
commander and I was like, "So, we're gonna release our own chemical weapons, right?" And they were like, "No, NATO would never do that." I'm like, I feel like they would. And also, like, if we did, then by definition, I've proven you wrong. Like, are you going to let me take some battlefield initiative? And he's like, that's not how it works. So I'm like, it's how I was trained. And this is a former military guy. He was so mad at me.
Was that Jackson?
Yes, it was. So it was worth every minute. But yeah, I've been covering stuff in class with kids and trying to get them an understanding of what is going on. Because I teach a course in international relations, so it's been a very interesting time to be a history teacher, and it was an interesting time to be a history teacher before this happened, and it continues to be. So yeah. Anything else other than being sick and
I have a ton
being
of
surrounded by
terrain that
screaming?
I'm supposed to be working on, but
What do you got left to do? What do you have left to do?
I have the 200 trees from China that have arrived. Like 3 village sets to paint, and probably hills to make.
I have
But I need to paint up 24 panzers in desert colors in 10 days. So the terrain's
well,
gonna be on the
Spray
back burner for
everything
at least another
pink.
week.
well. Speaking of terrain, I'll transition to what I've been doing. I've got on my table next to me, uh, uh, 7 large scale jungle hills that are in the finishing stages of being painted. I need to dry brush them, and then I need to flock them. Um, and I need to pin some different trees and low ranking shrubs on them. So that's probably another night's worth of work. But then they're done, and I add those to my list of 3 more that I have done already. So I'll have at least 3 tables of large scale hill terrain. I also created some prototype ruins. I made a set of um, 4 like angled corner pieces of ruined stone wall. That's like ruined pieces of a temple. I also managed to get my delivery from Amazon of Easter Island head statues. I think I got like 10 of them. So
Nice.
yeah, it was a weird package to get in the mail. It's just all these random Easter Island heads for a fish tank. So I have those. I have some trees. I was going to start working on area terrain, and I have buildings to put together. I think the buildings are going to be the biggest challenge, and I also have already cut pre-measured pieces to use for rivers but for roads. So I have the stuff sanded and sculpted. I just need to start laying down um, like rocks and other pieces. So I've been working on that a lot, but I've been pretty stalled for the last 2 weeks because things got busy. Um, we have a teacher in my department who's retiring. I have to interview for that job. Um, no, I'm not interviewing. My job is safe. No one can fire me. I'm invincible. But we need to hire somebody to replace his retirement. So I've been on that hiring committee. Um, I didn't talk to you guys about this before we recorded, but let me just make a random comment. It's completely off topic of what we're going to cover this podcast, and just make a plea to anybody who listens to this podcast. And hopefully our audience is larger than I suspect it probably is. But if you're going to a job interview, okay, and you show up and the first thing you say is, "Gosh, I'm sorry I'm late," and you have a shirt that is buttoned up wrong, that is wrinkled, you have your hair sticking up in the air, you're not wearing a tie, and you're wearing jeans and sneakers, um, you're probably not getting that job. Okay. And it looked like this guy rolled out of bed. And my question was like, there were 175 applicants for this job, and I interviewed 8 people today. And you're honestly telling me that the HR people sent me one of the 8 best people on that list? I was just like, I felt bad because there were people that were probably way more qualified than him that did not get the spot. So it's been a fascinating experience over the last couple days, trying to deal with this.
Well, if your
I got
HR is anything like my HR, they just sent you whichever 8 they randomly selected or recognized names from.
Given what I know about my HR person, I probably wouldn't be surprised. I will say that I did get to do some cool history stuff because I went to a social studies conference on Thursday and Friday of last week, and I got to talk to 2 different historians that gave keynote addresses at this National Council for Social Studies in New York, and they're both very relevant to our chosen game, Blood and Plunder, and its subsidiaries and stuff like that. So the first historian to talk was less directly connected, but was very interesting. Was a historian that did a lot of research on the life of a slave in the household of Robert Townsend, who is like one of Washington's spy masters in New York. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Revolutionary history, but um, it was kind of believed that this family was like abolitionists, and they weren't really believed to have owned slaves, but they very much did. And they found like diaries and family Bibles and all sorts of interesting documents from these people's lives, and they found ways to kind of insert these voices that were missing from the historical record into it. And the second historian who was very, very interesting. Was a historian who specialized in I'm gonna pronounce this wrong because I'm really bad at this, but the Haudenosaunee tribes, which is like the coalition tribes, like the Iroquois and the different groups that are part of that Haudenosaunee group. That's like a nation in upstate New York. Um, and it's pointed out that the first treaty that the Americans ever signed, that's not their alliance with France or their peace treaty with Britain, was with the Haudenosaunee nation of natives, and it talked about the difficulties that they had trying to pick a side in the war because they tried to stay neutral for the first half. And it talks about there's so many interesting facts that came up, and all of it's pretty relevant to the Fire on the Frontier stuff. And because they talk about the fact that one of the most expensive campaigns that the Continental Congress ever funds, at least up to that point in the war in 1778, is a campaign to raid, pillage, and burn Haudenosaunee tribes all over northern New York in an effort to prevent them from joining on the side of the British and tipping the war in favor of the Brits. And it's fascinating. And the book is coming out next year. I'm looking forward to reading it. It's the kind of thing that I think Joe Forrester and Liam would be really interested in reading because it covers the history of some of the tribes in the future from where they did their research. So pretty cool. I can grab you guys copies of it if you're ever curious, or I can lend you mine. But I'm on the list to get it when it comes.
That sounds really cool.
Nice.
All right, so we'll make our announcement about our tournaments, and if you hear increasingly loud crying in the background, my dog is getting desperate because she's sitting with her nose near the door and she wants to leave, but she's not going anywhere. So if you hear me unexpectedly mute, it's because I'm dealing with the dog situation. The other thing I've been busy with is that I have a foster dog. There's a local shelter in the area that needed families to help out, and so my dog wants to go talk to the other dog, but that conversation is not going to be productive. Is the diplomatic way that I would phrase how those dogs are getting along. They're both very sweet, and they've both been given plenty of treats and plenty of training, but it's a real headache the last 3 days. All right, so I will let Tyler and Glenn give the updates on the tournament while I mute myself and chase my dog out of this room.
Nice. Glenn, do you want to start?
Sure. The space is or the tournament, Plunder of Easter Island, is at Critical Hit Games in Abingdon, Maryland, 16th of April, 2022, which is again probably a poorly picked day by us, but it's the Saturday before Easter, or like between Good Friday and Easter. So we realize that's awkward for some people. But we did have approximately half the spaces taken up already. So we're getting a pretty decent showing, even with the awkward timing of it.
I was going to say we have a lot of spaces, so we still have space. Like when we say about half, like we still have quite a few spaces remaining. Don't worry that you're going to run out of spaces.
Yeah, I think we still have 14 spots left, which, like I said, is about half. I know we've got a list here in the show notes, but I don't think that's accurate.
Oh, we're down to 14?
Okay. I believe so.
So that's exactly half. That we have 14 people showing. If we get that, that is bigger than, I think that would be bigger than the Blood and Plunder event at Historicon was.
I thought we had 18 there. I mean,
18.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good, but 14 for a regional game would be pretty respectable. Let's be honest.
I'd be really happy. I'm happy with it where it is now. But I'm hoping that a few more people in the area want to make the trek, or people that
I don't think any of my inner circle crew have RSVP'd yet. I don't know if they're coming, but none of them have RSVP'd. So I expect that number to go up a little bit at least.
Well, they definitely want to put in their reserve sooner rather than later, I think, because I'm going to post an article about this in addition to this podcast, and I suspect we're going to get a handful of people after that.
Yeah,
So
because I know we also need to bug the Nova guys.
Yes.
Anyways, land games, 150 points each, 2-hour rounds, plenty of time for shopping, food, etc. And I think we have some time at the end where I don't know if it goes over. Maybe we just pull out some ships and throw together a sea game or something. I don't know.
I'm down for that.
Yeah,
Right?
we'll
No,
definitely. We should be done before the store closes.
we'll just play till they kick us out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Um, so
I know the guy running it, running the store that day is a big fan of Firelock, uh, Firelock Games. So
I'm excited for this. With that many people there, I expect they're going to sell a lot of product. So I hope they do really well.
yeah,
exactly.
that is the other advantage. We did pick a venue specifically that has Firelock stuff.
Yep. Hmm.
So bring your money.
Yeah,
This is something I'm happy to do for Mythicos. I'd point out, but Mythicos is they got a lot of irons in the fire, and so I haven't followed up with them recently. But I wanted to do demos. They do have products in the shelves, but most of their product is sold, um, which you think would be a good sign for them. But they got other stuff going on. I think they're trying to print a new line for their Mythic America stuff, and they're trying to get that
yeah.
out. They're also trying to get their 3D printing back up and running because it was kind of mothballed for a while. Um, are you guys bringing lists, or are you planning on just like ringing? I forget what the plan was.
Tyler.
I wasn't intending to participate unless we have an odd number of players.
Okay, so you're gonna bring a ringer list.
Yeah, and I will have loners. One of the things I ran into, so you guys all like point to me as being the lunatic with the huge collection. But really what I have is like a starter box of everything and then one of each of the boats. So 150 points is outside of that starter box range and I'm like, "Oh, I have to start using like allied forces here." So English and Dutch or
Yeah, but it's like
brethren lists. Yeah.
a starter box plus some natives, which I know you've got plenty.
Yeah. Yeah,
Plenty
I can put out some fun 150 point lists. So I will have loners and I can still do with, one of every starter. If someone has a nationality that they want to play, but you need a loner, let us know in the email whenever you sign up. Like, hey, it would be really cool if I can get a loner for Spain. I will make sure to get a list to you that is, of the correct nationality you want to play.
Okay. I think we only have one player that I think emailed us that he wants a loner,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Oh, I'm a little worried. I haven't played before. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Like, are you sure it's okay if I come here with no experience?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, come on
literally
down. I think you'll have a
hard
blast." So yeah, so I think we only have one person taking a loner, so there's plenty of available. So if you're grabbing one of the 14 spots that's left, just let us know. And as Tyler said, we probably you can probably have it your way. So just give us an idea. We'll make it work.
So
So
Tyler,
I'm
yeah,
bringing a list.
yeah. So Tyler and I are Well, I'm a dedicated TO for this. Tyler is an on the fence ringer.
I was planning to TO. I mean, I can hang out behind people if they haven't played before and give them rules tips, whatever. I think between the two of us, we can cover
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's
you guys will
refing
be
this thing and running pairings.
and then I'm also bringing a couple of loner forces as well.
Nice.
Because I think I put up 3 or 4 loners at the tournament at
The
StoreCon.
Historia Fallenicon, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
But
I'll have several lists to loan out again.
I will be playing to win.
What are you bringing?
So I was gonna, if I had the ability to bring whatever I wanted, I would bring a native list out of Fire on the Frontier. Like I would, but I don't have enough stuff painted. I don't have enough units of Braves ready. I have 12 fully painted. Um, but I need like young braves and Niases and I need some variety, and I don't have it. I would also want to bring cavalry, but because I have boxes of it to paint, but I don't have time to do that because I have to finish up all the terrain. So I'm gonna use stuff that I already have painted because I know that it's ready. So I'm probably gonna bring a Tarico list, and just run Spanish, with like all sorts of like funky land rules to make a mess of things.
A
Um,
Tercio?
Tercios. Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. I've play tested the list against my friend Shane, and it did pretty well. Like I won one game, lost the other one, but the one I lost was really close, and it was like down to the bitter end. Um, I did play some games with Nigel, but I brought like an ocean list, and we did some rules really wrong, and so
Mistakes were
I
made.
feel bad because Nigel like did a really good job of documenting it, and he really like took the time to like I took pictures and stuff, and we have a write up of at least the first game where you can watch me get my face caved in with a shovel in like 2 turns, and like we didn't have enough time to break any of the rules in that game, so like yeah, I I earned my loss there. The second one we goofed in a couple of spots, so we'll keep playtesting and try again. But we had a good time anyway. So I'm probably bringing the Tercios. We'll see how that goes. But I might change my mind and do Dutch stuff. I'm not sure.
Nice.
Which brings us to Fire on the Frontier.
All right. So, starting with the French. Well, we've got some new factions here. We've got French Raiders. We've got New France Garrison, French Canadian Privateers, which is an updated list, and Iberville's Expeditionary Force. We bring in the normal standard commanders. And then we've got some historical commanders, Frontenac, Captain Baptiste, and then de Saint Castin, which Tyler, this guy is awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping that someone would actually like highlight him specifically. One of the things in the book that's kind of crazy is we didn't really mention this before we started in on factions, but there are 16 sub factions across the 3 different nations or nationalities. So you have 16 factions. Each of those then has, some of them have multiple sub factions. But the big thing is we got 27 characters. And that's one of the driving things in the book. And Castine is one of the kind of standout guys from the story, I think. He's French. He fought in both wars covered by the book, King Philip's and King William's War, and then he just completely goes native, which is something that all of the French were doing. They were better integrated with the native tribes rather than seeing them as like subjects of the English crown sort of thing. They saw them as equals. But he can lead Canadian militia from No Peace. He can lead the new French Raider faction. And one of the cool things is he can lead one of the native factions, the Abenaki subfaction of the Wabanaki tribe. And he brings Elusive, Guerrilla Commander, and Tough. And then his special rule is Unorthodox Force, so he can bring Braves as a core choice, which Braves being an awesome unit, that's an awesome rule.
Remind me what Guerrilla Commander does as a rule, because I'm familiar with Elusive and Tough, but I don't recall the other one.
I'm trying to remember if that one gives you quick.
I
don't think it does. I think it's skirmishers for everyone in his command range.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool. I like that.
Now, this is one of those things where like Unorthodox Force Braves, I think that really like affects the Canadian militia if he's attached to that, because the French Raiders and the Wabanaki Abenaki
already have Braves.
have Braves as core.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. And I missed one. There's also legendary commander Iberville.
Yeah.
Which is I think one of their commanders that was engaged. Some of the larger naval engagements he was present at, and he got his own expeditionary force in here. But you also see in the French section, which I think is actually the last section, but another thing I've noticed with all of these factions is we seem to have a lot more faction-specific fighting man characters. So the French have Father Theory, which can only be French or Wabanaki, and then they can also get a Jesuit priest, which can also be only French, Wabanaki, or Northern Woodland tribes. So it's nice that or I think it's cool that we're starting to get fighting man characters that are more specific to factions um, than what we'd seen before. Where I think previously the only limitation was like some of the sailors couldn't go with natives.
I think the cool thing about this, and I don't remember if we already brought this up or um, if we plan on bringing it up later, but like the overarching theme of this book is like flavor. There's so many different flavors to these lists, and there's all sorts of fun little combos you can build because there are restrictions in the list construction for every one of these factions. But a lot of these leaders give you the ability to kind of overcome or just kind of sideline some of the possible disadvantages. But the lists all play radically differently. So like these French lists that are listed, there may be only like maybe 4 of them or 5 of them, I forget which factions you have as an option. But they can play radically differently depending on which leader you bring, or which one of these little fighting characters you add onto it. So you can have a totally different strategy for a totally different list, and it winds up giving you a lot of playability, a lot of options, either for scenario play or for a tournament.
One of the funnier combos that I caught while going through it, and I'm trying to find where he's at. Right, so the Jesuit priest character that you can add seems to be, and same thing with Father Theory, who can also join French or Wabanaki. Both of them grant extra fortune points at the start of the battle. So they can be attached to any French faction. You can theoretically grab like the Jesuit priest, the Father Theory, one of the no peace characters, just the regular religious leader, and perhaps a fortuitous captain, and start the game with 7 fortune points. I don't know that you want to spend like 30 points on fortune points. Yeah. I don't know that it's a good plan, but I think it's kind of a hilarious one.
I'll bring that list to face Nigel and just
That's it.
roll. I'll re-roll like 7 times in the first turn, and
Yeah.
I'll still get tabled by the end of the second turn.
That said, it's also the idea of a commander, which I think all of these guys. Oh, one's a fighting man character, one's a hostage advisor. Okay,
Yeah.
so the Jesuit priest and like the other priest from NPBTL would I think have to go in the command unit. So you've got a commander that's walking around with a bunch of priests.
Right, and that might preclude you from doing this. Yeah, the spiritual leader is the other character.
Are you not allowed to have more than one hostage advisor?
I mean, sometimes those hostages need a lot of advice, and you gotta bring more than one.
So they have to be attached to your captain. Only one of these characters may be added to a force. Okay. So you can have Father Theory or the spiritual leader, but you can always have, which one's the fighting man?
No, the Jesuit priest is the one that's
Is the hostage. Okay.
Father Theory is the one that can go out in a unit.
Right. So you can have your choice of either the Jesuit or the spiritual advisor from No Peace, and then Father Theory, and start with +2 fortune points off your characters, and then another one if you have the captain with the ability to grab an extra fortune point.
Well, from a strictly historical perspective, I would take the Jesuit priest. He's probably a better company since he's probably like multilingual and cultured, and he probably plays an instrument, and he's been to college for like 10 years. So take the Jesuit, ladies and gentlemen. As a historian, that's my recommendation. Glenn, I'll ask you this question. Of the new factions in the book, which one would you be most likely to build and paint up a force for? which one are you most interested or excited to try out?
Are you asking specifically about the French or the whole book?
I was gonna say.
I'm going to ask you specifically about the French, but
Oh.
we'll circle back to this question at the end because if you have your own thing you want to do, I think I know what your answer is, but yeah.
If we're looking specifically at the French, I think I was already working on a Canadian militia force with Coureur de Bois, etc.
Okay.
And I want to say that the New France garrison, I'm liking the look because it does have that more of a military look to it. You do get Braves Coureur de Bois as support. I need to look into some of the characters and how they interact with the Force a bit better, but that's one catches my eye. But French Raiders is like a kind of just a variation on the Canadian militia list with more native support.
Okay.
So, yeah, one of those two would probably be the way to go.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say I really like the rule for the French Raiders, where if you have more natives, the whole force, like if more than half your units are native, the entire force gains quick.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Tyler, I was going to ask you if you want to do the natives next, and I'll finish off. Or should we finish with the natives? I'll do the English.
Save the natives for last because I think they're the majority
Yeah.
of the book.
Yeah, they are. All right, so the English have a couple of new factions here. Again, this is geared towards these wars at the end of the 17th century, and you're getting some updates to sculpts, but you're seeing some kind of new technology, new tactics, new uniforms. But they still scale pretty well with the existing stuff. So you have in your possession the ability to mix and match forces to a great deal more. You have the New England Militia, whose core units are English militia and Indian fighters. You have North American English Militia, who have a couple of different special rules. They basically make them a lot more crafty, wily, with the ability to they have force options so they can be played radically differently depending on what you choose. So just as Tyler kind of alluded to, if you include Indian fighters and Braves as core units, you don't include any militia, pikemen, or artillery crew, you can become a ranging party. You can bring militia cavalry's corps and do troop of horse, or you can do a colonial expeditionary force where you bring in these provincials as a core unit, which is like a new unit in the back of the book. We'll talk about those later. You have New England privateers, because people from Boston don't just break the law at a Red Sox game. And you have the New England Village Garrison, which is I'll come back to that one. And then we have Church's Raiders, which is like a kind of super elite force with ruthless and drilled. Can be exchanged for elusive. So it's run by Benjamin Church, who's a really cool character, interesting guy whose history is described in the supplement. The English Village Garrison has what is, in my opinion, the greatest unit in the game, and that unit is those villagers, those beautiful, beautiful villagers. And we talked about this before we recorded. The civilians unit. I'm just going to read this off to you because it's hilarious. They are 2 points per person. Their fight skill is 7. Their save is an 8. So they barely succeed at saving themselves while in cover. So when they're hiding behind a barrel, really most of them is probably sticking out from behind the barrel. And their resolve is 7. Their special rules are Sound of Thunder. They're very scared of muskets, even though they've been using them all their lives. The best part about this is that they're like real wild cards. You don't draw activation cards for civilians. They can only activate after everybody else in the force is gone. And to activate them, you draw a card randomly off the top of your deck, and you basically use that. At the end of its activation, if it has no fatigue, one friendly unit within the same structure or fortification may make a free rally test. So if these people are not tired, your forces they're actually fighting will look at your villages and be like, "Aw," and then they'll rally for free. So you also have to have
Only with a single die.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
single die.
They're not going to save you if you're shaken like on like with 5 fatigue. They'll help a little bit, not saving you.
No, but seeing a beautiful spy mistress or a guy with a pipe looking down at you lovingly can be inspiring, because they'll be doing that looking down at you from the inside of a closed-topped fortification, which you are required to bring if you play the New England militia. With God as my witness, I'm going to build this force. I wish they had more variety in their civilian models, because the ones I bought a pack of them and they're great. But for what I'm planning on doing, which is to build the stupidest list possible, I need more variety of sculpts. So I might wind up kind of mixing a bunch of different product lines in the same scale and building several fixed fortifications using Dexter Hyde's methods of building like wooden stock palisades and just filling them with civilians and garbage. They're great for scenarios and things like that, but I want to bring them to a tournament just to see if I win by accident and make people feel bad about themselves.
But don't forget, they do have that 2-point option to arm half of them with muskets.
Ooh.
So, or bows or pistols.
I
So
don't know.
you can expand the civilian list by adding some of the what are the
Boucaniera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I realize I left out the fact that their weapons are standard melee weapons. That's it. They don't have any muskets. You have to pay for them. Yeah, these are glorious. I will forever be grateful to Joe and Liam for creating this as a unit. Because I'm going to try to play them in every game that I
But
possibly
yeah, a
can.
maxed out unit of these armed is 18 points, and in most of the like 100 to 200 point games you'll be playing.
I will point out that if the unit gets destroyed, the controlling player gains a strike point. So watching civilians get murdered does have some deleterious effects, to put it as diplomatically as possible. But yeah, they're one of the big units that's listed in the back of the book. I'll also point out, I don't remember if we mentioned this before, because we're kind of recording these different portions at different times. But all the units from No Peace Behind the Line are briefly summarized in the appendix in the back of the book, which is a really clever design trait on the part of the book designers, because it's easy to kind of, if you don't have the cards for this, you can just flip open this part of the book and you have the basic stats. And you have stuff without having to look it up in the book and flip back and forth. So I really like that as a feature for new players.
It's also nice that when you're building the list, you can just glance there for what the points are for the unit you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. Because I like doing lists by hand because I'm cranky and old.
Although it doesn't give unit options, it just gives you the basic points per model and stats and equipment. Not.
But once you've been playing around with this a lot, that's kind of all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brings us to the natives. So Tyler,
Wait, hold on. You were asking me about my favorite list in the book, and then you skipped right on past.
What did I skip past for you? What did I not include?
The England. Well, yeah, you've got your villagers. I'm looking at the New England Privateers, I think. Which is
the Boston Pirates.
Yeah. The so this is pretty similar to the I want to say Dutch privateers list that I already run. It's not as Dutch, right? But it's English. So you got English militia, which sea dogs, good. As your basic sailors, they're almost as good as your Dutch
Zaleden.
Oh, Zaleden, yeah. And then my favorite unit, European sailors, to help form that core. And then your support units are Dutch with Enterplogue and Coppers. And then unit of freebooters if you need them. So this force is looking a lot of fun, and I think you can take Mosley with it, which I want to say
he boosts them up big time.
Yeah, he makes them more Dutch. So they make the Coppers core. Makes freebooter support, which they already are, but
these guys. I will say that it's a mix of Dutch and English units which is historically accurate because New Amsterdam would have still been New Amsterdam, and it wouldn't have been New York. But they patrol all over the place. These guys really make New Yorkers proud because they have all these special rules. They trained in veterans get hard chargers. They have a +2 in deciding if they're the attacker. Officers included in the force gain strict, and veteran units just gain expert sailors for free because they're so busy robbing people that they have practice. So, yeah, these guys are a lot of fun. If you're playing a ship game, Glenn, you already have the stuff for this, so it makes complete sense that you'd be playing this list. I expect that you're gonna, drive up in your flute and start murdering me with a bunch of New England privateers.
I mean, I'd probably use a faster ship than a flute, but yeah. The and the other thing is like, aside from the English militia, everybody in this list is trained or veteran.
Yep.
So, like the Sea Dogs, man, I feel bad because I'm blanking. I think Zaleden have hard chargers. So, giving the Sea Dogs hard chargers, they already have brawlers. Same with the Coppers, they already have brawlers. So now they have hard chargers and brawlers. You're always looking for those 10s.
Yeah, you board the ship and it's going to be on fire in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, and your Enter Plogue also getting hard charges is just disgusting. Like,
This is awful. It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
I can't wait to run this list. I'm gonna be honest.
You gotta run it
again.
against
That list is gonna be a beat stick.
Yeah, I want Nigel to bring all of his gorgeously painted canoes and try to board your ships, and then just bodies litter the deck.
This will be on the Sloop of War too, so we're going speed 5 and all that stuff. Like, we'll just chase you down and murder you with Man, words are not my thing tonight. All of the what are the little cannons? Not light cannons, the little
swivel
guns.
Swivel guns.
Yeah, all the swivel guns on the bow.
It's been a long week, Glenn. It's Tuesday.
Right.
It really has been, though.
It's been a long week. It's Tuesday. This is also full disclosure to people that listen to this. If I get this all properly put together, we recorded the whole thing, and then we found out halfway through that the thing had glitched out and it had destroyed a portion of the recording. So we're fixing up the second half. So we're recording this on 2 separate nights, and I shouldn't have any scheduling issues. Like, Tyler has a real job and Glenn has 3 kids, but I've been the biggest problem because I'm trying to coordinate a bunch of other things. But this book is awesome, and we want to give it the props it deserves. So, yeah, exactly.
What was that? Weapons shipments to Ukraine? What?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like, we're not getting into that right now. So I have to talk to this guy tomorrow.
No. It's just a joke, Tom. Just a joke.
For our listeners, I am not currently in the process of arms trafficking.
Which is totally what an international arms trafficker would say.
He did
That's
say
fair.
Currently.
That's fair. I have not past, present, or in future intent shipping weapons to the Ukraine or any groups on any side. All right. So that brings us to, I think, the coolest part of this book. And thankfully, the Europeans have been supplying these guys with copious amounts of weapons. So, Tyler, talk to us about these new native tribes.
Yeah, so of the 16 factions that we get, 7 of the new ones are the natives. So just quickly going over who those are, you have the New England tribes, which is just broadly all of the people who are not named in the credits. Then you have Wabanaki, Iroquois, the Northeastern Woodland tribes, Southeastern tribes, the Westo, and then every faction or every nationality has gotten its character army, whatever you want to call it. This one, you get King Philip's Alliance. And the natives, this time around, these are not the southern tribe like the Carib natives from No Peace. Everything has access to muskets.
Hold on. We are still seeing a lot of units that are like warriors, young warriors, warrior archers. So
they do bring in,
those are still the units that are the southern units. But I'm sure if you use northern-looking models for those units, no one's going to complain about it as long as they're armed appropriately.
Right, like the a lot of the units or a lot of the factions use the warriors, which are the native clubmen. They use those, and if you look at like the models from Mythicos and stuff like that, they're really good models with the North American war clubs.
Yeah, I have a whole kit of those that I got from a friend of
Yeah,
mine, Greg
and that's kind
McNally,
of
who, yeah,
what to use. um,
yeah, I think I have like 8 blisters of Braves that are all painted up, but
Well,
I ordered some of the new Niasis models because they're coming out with a lot of new sculpts at Firelock and through Phalanx, but there are a lot of interesting, fun options to kind of supplement these forces. So if these are the kinds of native tribes you've been waiting to play, or if you haven't been happy with the options you had in No Peace Behind the Line because you're more geared towards this kind of a historical or geographic region, like this is your book, and it really it's a must have for any player who's interested in these native forces, both in their history, because Joe's done a really good job of doing the research, but also in terms of playing out these games on a tabletop. So yeah,
yeah. The big thing with these lists, and it's something like, so I kind of behind the scenes, I sort of owe an apology that it didn't get out to everybody, but um, Tom, you played a game and were sort of like one of the first reports that we got back, and you got absolutely smashed repeatedly by natives. And it kind of
twice.
was like, it was kind of like the new kid on the play, like the new kid at school just beats up your friend on the playground and takes his lunch money. And I went looking through the factions, and the rules that are on these guys on paper can look pretty insane. They get a lot of special rules, both good and bad. So everybody, um, no native force can include ship size 2 or larger. That's pretty standard. Um, if they are the attacker, half the units rounded down can be deployed using lay and wait, which friends of the show know is the bane of our existence. Um, any size 1 boat gets paddles. That's pretty normal. This force cannot include any artillery, also normal. When a shooting attack is declared against any units in this force, if that unit is not prone, they can take they can just choose to go prone when shot at. So it's a -1 bonus to the shoot save. After the attack is resolved, the unit is then prone. And everybody has poorly equipped and war cry. But then you start looking through the force special rules, and it's like all units gain skirmishers, or units in this force gain skirmishers and vanguard, battle hardened, things like that. Like get the normal faction rules on top of the long laundry list of nationality rules. And some of those faction rules can be pretty gross. It can get rid of, for example, poorly equipped. So you don't have the crazy Spanish slow reload. And there are ways to get ruthless, and the skills on some of these units are scary when you start throwing things like ruthless onto them. Characters who can bring great warrior. You can build a probably 150 point list with like 20 models
Yeah,
if you want
and
to
those
go
20 models,
ham.
yeah, those 20 models are no joke. So like Nigel really had fun with this. He brought Black Kettle and the Iroquois. He negated most of the negative rules. But in fairness to both him and me, like we're both fairly new to the game, and he built a good list. But I also brought a terrible list. So I brought lists that was really more for playing on a ship, or against kind of other Europeans, and I kind of played right into his hands. The boards we also set up had a lot of woods in them and jungle, so that means that he can lay in wait in them. He can play elusive. He has scouts, and so just like you'd expect, the native factions really thrive when they're hiding in the woods and doing hit and run kind of tactics. And so things played pretty heavily in his favor because that's the way these lists were designed. Um, but like that said, there are a lot of different leaders and options and combinations that I haven't really gotten a chance to get on the tabletop or try out. But I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to do that. So Tyler, of all the lists you've looked at, first of all, we'll do two things. We'll do it with Glenn, because Glenn had a French one he liked, but he had a really juicy one he wanted. Of these native lists, which one would you try to build? And then throughout the whole book, what do you definitely want to do on the table?
Oh man, see, I think they're both native lists, and they're both very similar native lists. One of them is Westo. They gain Ruthless universally and well equipped. On natives is just a gross combo. But I like them. So they were likely an offshoot of the Erie tribe, which is kind of like rooting for the home team. But they moved as far south as Virginia and South Carolina, which is sort of not really outside the scope of the book, but it's one of the conflicts that I really like. These were the guys who were allying themselves with the Scots in Charleston and started the whole fight. They were basically native barbarians, Vikings almost. Like they participated in the slave trade, which is a bit sketchy, but they were known as being just fearless warriors, super good at fighting, and just kind of show up, kick ass, and take names, and then leave. And I really want to put that force on the table. The other one that I want to play, well, I want to put that force on the table because I like the Scots in Charleston or Stewartstown. And exact location escapes me at the moment. I want to put that on as a scenario at some point. Then the other tribe that I really like is just the Iroquois with Mohawk, because I love the models that Mythicos has done. And I really want those clubmen with the crazy hair and the mean looking clubs. And they're also a very similar list. I think Iroquois, your options for force options are to run the Mohawk or the Seneca. If you run Mohawk, exchange cunning for well equipped, and cunning is the rule that all Iroquois get. Cunning and battle hardened, and you can swap out cunning for well equipped, which makes them good at using their muskets again.
One thing I'll mention in reference to kind of the native tribes in the Northeast is like I live closer to some of these tribes than you guys do, and so like you guys might have studied them more. I've been inside of a longhouse, like or a model of one. The Haudenosaunee tribes, of which the like Iroquois are a part. They're part of this confederation in the Northeast, and they're still there. The Haudenosaunee are there. When I was at a recent social studies conference, we got to hear from a historian and speaker that's compiling a book about the history of the Haudenosaunee tribes in the Northeast. And some cool facts about these guys are, well, first of all, I shouldn't say guys. I should say these girls, because they're a matrilineal society who's traced their lineage down through the women. They were one of the largest powers in North America, even up to the time of the Revolution. So much so that the Continental Congress in the 1770s, right after the war starts, agreed to finance and justify the largest military expedition to that point in the war to go on a horrifying raiding mission against the Iroquois and the Haudenosaunee tribes to prevent them from the possible outcome, which is that they might join up with the Patriots and fight the British, or the other way around, really. So the Continental Congress makes sure they can't join with the British by trying to, pillage and burn their way through most of central New York. They don't succeed to the extent that they want to, but I'm excited that these are something we have to play on the tabletop, that we have a lot of variety. And the Caribbean tribes are cool, and they're a great addition to the Caribbean fighting of the no peace behind the line thing. But all these North England tribes, these North American tribes, I've been waiting for it, and this is a really great addition to the game.
Yeah, I was really excited to see them drop in. The Caribbean tribes, you're getting people who, first of all, the timeline is a little bit earlier. This focuses more on the last maybe 20 years or so, 20 to 30 years of the century. So the Caribbean tribes are still mostly using bows. They have one unit with muskets, and they're not good at it. And you're dealing with tribes that have already been passed over and beaten up by the Spanish, and then you have the rest of Europe just kind of follows along. The North American tribes aren't like that at all. The North American tribes were in the colonies equal to just about any military force that tried to push them around, and it's cool to see them on the table. And
There's a reason that that the British signed treaties with them. They signed demarcation lines. They try to prevent the settlers from being, the thefts of land that they are, and prevent them from moving west of certain territories because they know that the Indians are forces in their own right. They are independent nations, which they're, like the first nation that we sign a treaty with after our independence. Other than France and our alliance or Britain and the peace treaty is the Haudenosaunee, which is in central New York, ranging into Canada. They're the first nation we signed a treaty with. So our treaties date back to the late 1700s with them because these are forces in their own right. They're taken seriously, and this shift and this change is reflective of the fact that their relationships to Europeans, particularly the French, have been both culturally and economically changing. So they have access to this equipment. They know how the Europeans play ball, and they're willing to get down in the muck with them, which is why they have no choice. And some of them hold up pretty well. These guys give the Europeans a run for their money, so good for them. So let's just talk about the new sculpts that we've got available.
Well, I did want to touch. You mentioned it briefly that like some of these are late century. Some of the list, this I think this started No Peace Beyond the Line, but they definitely have the time periods after each list. Most of the natives are either 1660 to 1680 or 1660 to 1700, which leads me to believe that they might be showing up again in Raise the Black.
Yes,
but like for instance, the French, everything in this book cuts off at 1700. But like many of these forces for like the French or the English don't start until 1675. So, I mean, if you're looking for themed games, that'll help you figure this kind of stuff out. So, in a tournament, most of this stuff will probably be legal unless we start seeing tournaments that are like, here's the time periods, guys.
Right. The split, the potential for split tournaments just for balance. But so far, I don't think that's going to be an issue. These lists that do run straight up to 17, the lists that do run all the way up to 1700 seem fair. As far as stuff to expect going forward, we've talked to Mike a bunch. One of the new units, the 17th century provincials, they're specified as 17th century because we're getting new provincials in some of the playtesting material that we've seen. There are provincial troops, so there will be an 18th century version of that unit coming. And I think we talked a lot about the Queen Anne's War, kind of the Spanish and English fighting. If that doesn't get covered as another of these theater books, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in Raise the Black, because Raise the Black kind of cannibalized parts of this release. And it sort of went back and forth. Like we joke that Joe wrote an 80-page book around the fortification rules that he intended to use for the siege of St. Augustine. And St. Augustine doesn't show up in this. You don't go south of the Carolinas, really.
No, I think those fortification rules are fantastic. Like they really add a dimension to the game, and since a lot of the scenarios that we have revolve around these big events, and a lot of these big events involve fortifications, involve ships trying to commit raids on ports, and each of these pieces can be looked at as another little tool in your toolbox if you're somebody who's a lover of history that wants to build one of these scenarios out to kind of game it through at a Historicon or whatever, we're planning on doing that kind of thing. Then this gives you the tools. This gives you the ability to play around and design whatever you want. So we're psyched to put more of these on the table. I'm excited to play you guys in April when I get to come down there. I'm using Spanish probably for this tournament, but it's just because I'm preoccupied with building as much terrain as humanly possible. So I'd say after this for Historicon, I'm building a list out of Fire on the Frontier. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it'll be something cool. If I can get my hands on enough villagers, maybe I'll bring that to
That'd
Historicon.
still be crazy. That's so funny. The linked to you a while ago, and I guess if I say it, I should put it up maybe in the Tales of the Sail group. But the company that does I think they're meant for like Cromwell fighting in Ireland, but it has a bunch of like native clubmen, and it's just people with like shovels and pitchforks.
Yes, I bookmarked that because
Yeah.
I started looking through them and then, these are perfect. This is exactly what I want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But Firelock putting out, because we said we'd go over the new units. Firelock has been putting out new units. They've kind of made a bit of a splash as they came out, but we've gotten the Nyases and the Young Braves as new units. Firelock had already released the Braves quite a while ago. This is the first time they appear in print, but those models have been out. We also picked up new characters. So if you need a commander for your North American tribes, we have those now. We also have King Philip, and we grabbed Ben Church. They didn't release any. Am I right that they didn't release any European units? All like the Coeur de Bois and everything came out with the Braves.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the provincials and the French Company of Marines.
Yeah, they just use the existing soldiers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Soldados.
Yep. Yeah.
It would have been cool to see like a Saint Castin model, but it actually probably would have been to Iberville. I was going to make a joke about trying to sculpt a hobo for Castin, but yeah, it probably would have been to Iberville considering he's got the named force in this book.
Yeah. I mean, you have Church, right? And
yes.
he has the Church's Raiders. I bought Church, so I have him. And I got 2 units of Nyasis and the Woodland Tribes Commander. And I'm going to put together the Mythicus America Woodland figures and build up the whole force and turn them into Iroquois with the Braves that they've got. And just kind of put them all together. So I'll see how it plays. I've never gotten to play a native force. I feel like they play differently than their European counterparts. And, well, I mean, it makes sense that they would, but they do a good job of differentiating between the play styles for some of these forces.
I noticed one that would be very different that I think would actually not be bad. If you do the Wabanaki Penobscot force, the Wabanaki actually get size 2 ships.
Yeah.
Core units are Braves, Nyases, and Warriors. 2 of which don't benefit from this rule, but the Penobscot may add heavy melee weapons to all units for no cost. Cough, cough, Braves. And
Oof.
yeah, just having a shipload of Braves would be a lot of pain, I think.
Either of the Wabanaki forces, because the actual Abenaki themselves get Coeur de Bois as support.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking like any boarding action that you end up with Braves and everybody suddenly has heavy melee weapons.
It's just a boatload of Indians with big clubs.
And they're all good shots, so like they're either shooting you effectively with their muskets, or you come in and they have really big sticks. Like there's not really a winning situation there. So
all right, well,
that'd
I think once
amusing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that would be an amusing force to run for anybody who wants to do natives and the ocean.
I think we're going to play test a lot of this stuff, and some of the podcasts we're going to spend between now and the end of the year are going to be us reflecting on like how things played and what combos we made and stuff like that, because it's going to keep us busy after we run our tournament in April between then and Historicon, trying to get stuff prepped. So yeah, I don't know what we're doing for Historicon. I know that they've been bandering about like another Iron Man tournaments for the 3 different game systems. I know Mitch was talking about that. But I think if I make the PEI in time, I might want to try to use all the terrain we're making to do a scenario game, and see if I can get some kids involved or people involved and run a big a big port raid or something like that. Like what Glenn has or Tyler said.
I don't remember if we mentioned it already or not. But I have talked to, so I'm going to Adepticon. Like as we record this, I am pretty much packing a bag to jump on a plane tomorrow. I was supposed to be meeting Joe Forrester there and Nigel from your neck of the woods. And I think that might get pushed back to Historicon. And if they have it their way, they want to put on the Great Swamp Fight, which is one of the scenarios laid out in the book. But we're thinking we can do it at a pretty high number of models on the table. I know Nigel has like,
oh god,
1-to-1 scale with the actual forces that were there.
That would be awesome.
Realistically, it's like 1500 English, but I think, no joke, we could probably do it at 1/10 ground scale as far as like one model for every 10 guys, which is
that's crazy.
About what I did with Perico.
Yeah, we have to make that happen. That's got to happen.
The other plus would be if we could get some kind of linked campaign going with it, where there's like a lead up fight prior to it, or maybe an aftermath action kind of thing.
Yeah,
but I don't know the full story. So
no, I need to do more reading because they really gave you a ton of history in the book. So I'd only just kind of scratched the surface. It's short, but it's dense. Is the way I describe this as an expansion. So there's a lot to recommend it as a book. Joe and Liam should be proud of themselves. They really should. All right, so for the sake of time, because I don't know how long it's going to be when we stick it all together, we're going to do our trivia question. I'm also going to point out that we will kind of mention the question and the winners from last time. And then we're going to hold off on asking another question until we record in April, when we're going to be back on schedule, because we've been kind of wonky since a lot of stuff got goofed up in February, but we think we got to figure it out. So
yeah, we're expecting this episode to drop very late March, and rather than give you guys only a week to answer a question,
we'll wait until April and then ask the question then when you have a month.
Yeah, rather than delaying the episode to give you more time to answer the question, we're just going to pop out a new episode at the beginning of the month like we're used to, and we'll do a prize, or I don't know, maybe we'll do 2 questions. I have no idea. We'll figure that out.
We'll find something cool.
Yeah, we might be able to record that one like live on location kind of thing too, or at least prepping. You guys are going to be in the same building the night before Tom, you're hanging out at Glenn's house, right?
Yeah, I'm coming down to Glenn's house the night before. I'm on vacation that whole week, so
that's still mid-month though. That's
right. That's
I think we need to.
True.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So last time, the prize is a Blackbeard box set for Oak and Iron. This is Queen Anne's Revenge and The Revenge with Steed Bonnets. The question: when Edward Teach, aka Blackbeard, blockaded Charleston in 1718, he held several prominent citizens for ransom. While the demands were eventually met, the items in question were late in arriving, almost resulting in the deaths of the hostages. This question had 2 parts. Number 1, what did he demand as payment for their release? And 2, why were these guys late in returning with the promised items? The correct answers, and you needed both of them to get it right. Number 1, they want medical supplies. And number 2, their boat capsized, they got drunk and sort of wandered off. We were also willing to accept they got drunk and wandered off, or their boat capsized, since both of those are true. You didn't need to have the whole thing. So we only had 5 correct responses, and the winner in this particular case is Hakon Arneson. And I apologize if I mispronounce that, but I think this means that we get to ship something overseas, right? I get to do the shipping on this one.
Yeah, something like that.
You sound real Swedish, or possibly just Nordic in general. I'm not trying to make generalizations.
If you call the wrong person Swedish, you're gonna start another deluge.
They're gonna get so mad. They're gonna get so mad at me. But Hakon Arneson, you will be getting a box. We'll reach out to you, and I need to find out if there's a store near you, because I'd rather do business with them and give them the money than pay $4,000 to ship something to Europe.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. I shipped
its own
something
transport.
Pain.
Yeah. Well, so worst case, I'll put it in the mail and it'll be there. It'll be there presently. But you were correct, sir. They needed medical supplies and they got drunk and wandered off.
Norway, by the way.
Norway. Oh, then I'm really sorry I
Norway.
said Sweden. I'm really sorry I said Sweden.
Well,
I'm gonna say it could have been worse. You could have been Danish, and you said Sweden.
Yeah, your cultures are distinct. As a history teacher in the United States, I'm probably one of the 2% of the people in this country that is aware of that fact. So I should really know better. I'll do better next time. I promise. I promise you. All right. So upcoming events. We'll go through this list pretty quick, and then Glenn, you can take us out. So our tournament is coming. Obviously, we're going to post another just reminder. I think at this point, we already mentioned earlier in the podcast that we have half of our slots filled, if not more. But there's room. So if people want to come as of this recording, there are still spots, but you have to email us at talesofthesale@gmail.com to let us know, and we will try to add you to the ever updating posted event listing, so people kind of know who's on the list for who's coming. We have loner armies. We mentioned this before, but the more the merrier. Looks like it's going to be a pretty big deal, and we're happy we get to host something since Cold Wars is really not going to happen.
I want to emphasize, if you are interested but have not tried playing yet, don't worry about that. You can come to the tournament and play. That's how I got started in this game.
Yep.
And we already have, I think, at least 2 new people who are borrowing armies and will be playing for the first time.
Come on down. It's beginner friendly. This isn't a 40K tournament.
Yeah,
no one's going to yell at you for having the wrong gate for the dark elves. A friend of mine once said he started a tournament and he sits down next to his opponent, and his opponent sighs, this really deep sigh, and he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but this table is 1/4 of an inch too small. And my friend's like, it's okay. And another time, like later in that same game, his charge was like a fraction of an inch short, and my friend's just like, no, it's fine. You can just make the charge. And he's like, no way, because then I'm gonna owe you something later. Like it could be like weeks from now, but I'll owe you. I don't want to owe you. And it's like, what a sad world you live in.
Yeah.
This is the transactional view of life you've decided to adopt. But we don't do that at our tournaments, because we're there to play games and have fun. So there are rules and we're going to follow them, but I haven't seen anybody really try to stomp on a beginner. I've met a lot of friendly people playing this game. It's one of the reasons we record this podcast and why we like doing this so much. So, Kyle, you want to talk about Paint Night?
Yeah. So speaking of friendly people we've met, you all need to go away. No, we're doing Paint Nights once a month now. We initially started the Paint Nights because of lockdown, and we missed you all so much. And things are starting to reopen, and we're getting busy with other things. Some of those things actually include being able to go and play games on the tabletop. So We're going to knock paint nights down to just the third Friday of every month, unless that Friday coincides with something big. I think our tournament might actually be the something big. No, it's not on a Friday.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
it is.
our
Yes, it
tournament
is.
will be the next one.
Right. Yeah, you guys will be down there to set up from paint night.
Tom and I will be playing. We'll be here, so I don't know if we'll be playing or just making last minute terrain like mad.
I will be frantically spray painting something. It's tradition. If I don't show up the morning of high on spray paint fumes, I don't know what to do with myself.
I'll be
love to
live
stream.
from Glenn's secure location while we're actually recording that paint night. But
On the
the next one's
compound.
going to be mid-April, down from the compound, down on the farm. All right.
Yeah.
I'll mention Historicon, which is a long way down the line, but we will be there. I will definitely be there. I don't know about you guys or what comes up, but that's July 20th to 24th. I plan on being there for all 4 days and helping you guys and Mitch run whatever. And then last, if Glenn, you want to talk about Firelock's new starter bundles?
Yeah. With my favorite company, War Games Atlantic.
Second favorite. Come on, who pays the bills?
Second, yeah. Well, I mean, they do. Mike's working deals with them to produce the plastics. If I understand what's going on correctly, we're trying to. I think Mike is trying to bring plastics production overseas with these guys. But in the meantime, Firelock partnered with War Games Atlantic, the up and coming plastics company, to make a Blood and Valor starter bundle that is just awesome. It's 2 boxes of War Games Atlantic troops, 1 box of, if I recall correctly, 30 Germans, World War One, late war, and 35 World War One French, also double for World War Two if you have use for those. But those 2, the book and a pack of dice. You do save a significant amount of money, I think like 15%, something like that, with this starter bundle. But both of those, like one of each of those boxes is practically all the troops you'll ever need as far as number of bodies to play a pretty decent game of Blood and Valor. They're adding in heavy weapons and stuff. They're in the pipeline to be produced someday. They're not in the starter bundle, but just know that there is a continuous line planned here. So that's a good deal that just come out, and I'm looking forward to more from this kind of angle, because I know they're also working on British, and with Blood and Steel coming out, I know Firelock just announced Boxers and a whole bunch of other stuff that's from last century. So I think there's hopefully I'm hoping that there's a lot coming out of this partnership for Firelock in the future.
Cool. At this point, before the recorder bot blows itself up again, I'm going to say that we should call it, and we'll be recording pretty quickly after we get this released. But if things go according to plan, I'll probably have this out in the last week of March. So possibly Tuesday, if I can get to this over the weekend. Apologies for the delay, but the recording goof means that we had to fix pieces of it, and I'll have to patch things together. So Glenn, go ahead and take us out.
Everyone, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to us. We can't do it without you. We look forward to seeing you all April 15th at the next paint night. If you can't make the paint night, or that's the best place to see us if you can't make it to our tournament the following day, which we realize is a bit more limiting. So looking forward to seeing everybody at the tournament. Anybody we can't see, we look forward to seeing on the 15th. Again, thank you all for listening to us blather on about the games we play. So we'll see you all next time. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.